Daf Samach Dalet Amud Aleph, 5 lines from the top at the 2 dots. We learned in the Mishnah that if the Kayan made the Hagrola, he made the girl, and he had one soil was designated Lashem, the other one La'azazel. If after he made the girl, one of them died, so therefore in that case he brings a Yomi Zug Acher, he brings another pair, and he makes a girl, and he makes another girl, and he says, Im shall shemeis, if the one that died was the Sor Lashem, Zeshalav girl, Lashem is Kaim Tacht. The one that now the second girl, the one is designated Lashem, should be its replacement. And that's we're marked for that, Lashem. Vim shall Azazel meis, and if the one that was died was shall Azazel, Zeshalav girl Azazel. The one now on the second girl that was designated Lazazel, so that one, Yizkaim Tachtov, should be its replacement. Vahasheni Yirachistaiv, and the second one grazes till gets a mum, Vimak Viplu Doma, and they use the proceeds for an adava. So it says Zesh Olav a girl, so it says Lazazel Yizkaim Tachtov Vahasheni, and the second one should be the Sar Lashem. So the question is, what does it mean with the second one? So Zok the Gemara, Im Shel Shem Meis, if the one that was Shel Shem, that was the one that died, Zesh Olav, the one that comes from the second girl, should be its replacement. So it says that if you have a case where you have one of them died, you make a second girl, the Mishnah said, and now if the one that is Lazazel died, the one that is the second girl now should be for the Zazel to replace the first one that died. And Hasheni Yerachistaiv, and the second one should gracefully get some mum and use the process for the dam. So what is a Sheni? So what does it mean when it says that the second one is the second one that we say is Yerachistaiv? Which one are you makriv? So Amar Rav, Sheni Shebezug Rishon Yikra. Rav says the one that your makriv is the Sheni Shebezug Rishon Yikra, the second goat of the first pair. The first one is what you use, that your makriv, that you use for Sor Lashem. And Sheni Shebezug Sheni Yira, and the second of the second girl, that's the one that grazes till gets some more. Rabbi Yechon Amar, he says, no, Sheni Shebezug Rishon Yira, he says the Sheni Shebezug Rishon Yira, the one that grazes is from the first one, from the first girl, and Sheni Shebezug Sheni Yikra, and your makriv, the second of the second girl. That's the one you're makriv. As the Teisha Shoshana points out, it says that this is not only in the case where the one that died was the Sora Lashem. The question is which one is designated, which one is used for the Sora Lashem. It's not only when the Sora Azazel died, and the question is which one is the Sora Lashem. It's the reverse case as well. If the Sora Lashem died, and the question is which one is the first to be used for the Sora La'azazel. So Rav says you use the one from the first pair. Rav Yechon says you choose the one from the second pair. But my kamiflagi, what's the machalekes Rav Somer Balei and Nidachim? Rav says that we don't apply the din of dichui to living items, so something that's alive. So therefore, even though at the time that the Sor Lazazel died, then the Sor Lashem from the first pair was nitcha, you couldn't be makriv because it didn't have its pair, it didn't have its partner. So at one point in time it was nitcha, but subsequently when you made the girl, the second girl, now you've designated a second one for the Sor Lazazel, you have a pair for it, a partner, so now it's fit. So the fact that at one point in time it was nitcha, it was not roy, does not permanently disqualify it. So now when you made the second girl, it becomes kosher. So he holds a balachayim in dafkim, so therefore there's no reason to exclude the first one. Now why does he dafka choose the first one? We'll see shortly in the Gemara. But the first one doesn't become excluded. But Rabbi Yechon says balachayim nedachim. Rabbi Yechon says balachayim nedachim. At the point when the first one, the Sor Lazazel, died, that first Sor Lashem was disqualified. Even though it was temporary, it becomes permanently disqualified. Balachayim are nidachim. So my time the Rav, What's the reason of Rab that he says Balei Chaim are not nidochim? He says the Yalv Mechusar Zman. We learn out from a animal it's premature. Mechusar Zman, before the 8th day, when the animal is born, and within the first 7 days of its birth, then we say it's not kosher for a korban. You can't be makvet. So lav aflagav dahash, even though right now, within the first 7 days of its birth, you cannot use it, you cannot be makvet as a korban, so it's not roy, ki hara mechse shapadami. But from the 8th day and on, it becomes permitted. So you see that even though it was disqualified at one point in time, we don't say it's permanently disqualified. And after the 8th day it becomes permitted. Here also there's no difference. Yes, at the time when the Sorel Azazel died, at that point it became disqualified, but it's not permanent. What's the comparison? There by Mechusar Zman, it was never roy. It was never fit. It wasn't something that was nitcha. Time has not come yet. But here, it was fit, it was roy. Now, when the Sorel Azazel died, it became nitcha. So this becomes something which became disqualified. It was nira v'nitcha, and perhaps we should say that it's permanently nitcha, it's permanently rejected. El Gemara says, that's not the source of the time of the Rav, the Yalav mi bal mum either. He learns it out from when the animal has a mum, a temporary mum. So at the time that it has the mum, it's disqualified. When it becomes healed, it no longer has a mum, and it's fit for the akrava. So you see, even though there is at one point in time a disqualification, it's not permanent. So therefore, we say that the Yolaf Mibal Mumoiver, Love Aflagav Delay Chazihashta, even now, at the time when it has this temporary blemish, this temporary mum, it's not roy, ki hadam mitzvah, when it gets healed, it becomes fit. Here also, temporarily, the Sorel Hashem was not roy because the Sorel Azazel died. But when you find a partner, you make a girl and pair it up, it'll be roy. So that's where he learns it out. And how do we know that that is in fact the case by the mum over? Because the pasuk says, Ki mashchosam behem mum bom. It says that it has its corruption in them, and mum bom. So the pasuk says that umiyad ben necher lo yisakrivas lechem elakechem kol ela, ki mashchosam behem mum bom lo yirotz lachem. So it has that mum in them, it's not accepted. Mum bam udalayirotz, when it has that blemish, when it has the mum, then it's not accepted. Ha'avar mum and yirotzu. But when the mum passes, when it heals, then it is yirotzu. For Rav Yochanan, why doesn't he learn out from there? Rav Yochanan, miyat rachmana behem. Yes, but it says bahem, in them. It's only in the case of the mum where we say, even though it was nitcha, it becomes roy. But in other cases, it's only there. That's an exception. But in other cases, when it's nidchu, it becomes disqualified forever. V'rav, how does he darshan it? V'rav, hahu bahem. What he darshans bahem is not to tell us that it only applies over here, but it teaches us the following. Where do we say that a Baal Mum is not marasa, is not acceptable? That's only when it's by they're by themselves, where they're not in a mixture. But when they're in a mixture, where it's mixed together with other limbs which are not Baal Mum, and it's not identifiable. You can't identify which is the Baal Mum and which is not. It's a taroivas. It's all mixed together. Then it's mirtzu, then it's acceptable. The Isser, as opposed to other cases where you have macholos asuras, etc., where it's also in a taroivas, over here it's not. Kidusnan, evorim tamimim be'evorim balei mumim. If you have a taroivas, if you have a mixture of evorim, limbs of balei mumim that are together with tamimim, that are together with ones which are unblemished, together with ones which are blemished. Rabbi Elazar says, Im karava roish alechem mehem. If you're marked of the roish of one of them, you can call a roshim kulam. You can be marked of all the heads. Krov shalachamem, if the legs of one of them you were makriv, yikru kol kroim kulam. You can be makriv all of the kroim. If one was your makriv, you can attribute the one that you were makriv to the balmum, and you can say therefore that the rest of them, the balance of them, were all tmimim and it's kosher, and you can be makriv them. So what's the reasoning for that? Why should we attribute the one that they're makriv to the balmum? As the Ritva explains, because we darshan the Behem, and to teach us that it's only when it's ben and not a taruvis. Therefore, midoraisa, it's mutar de taruvis. Midorabbanan, they said, nevertheless, it should be also. But if you're already makriv one of them, then since the isser over here is only the rabbanan, we can attribute that the one that you're makriv is the balmum, and the rest are mutar, because mikra then they're all mutar anyway. So that's what he has. What Rabbi Elazar holds. But the Chacham say no. The Chachamim do not darshan the behem this way, and therefore they said that even if one of them was left and you weren't makriv, therefore we all are aser. They say they're all aser, and you have to take it out and burn whatever's left. You have to take it out and burn it in the base of streifa. Therefore, we don't darshan the behem. Taruvis is not mutar, and therefore we cannot attribute anyone that you're makriv to the one that was a balmum, and whatever is a remainder, we have to be choshetz. It's a balmum, and therefore yetzel the base of streifa. It has to be taken out and burned in the base of streifa. The idach. Where would Rav Yochanan learn this halacha from, that the taroivis is muter? Asiach Yitzchak says, he says that really you could say that Rav Yochanan holds like the Chachamim, and he does not learn out this din. However, we want to say that Rav Yochanan could really work out according to everybody. So how would it be consistent with the shita of Rabbi Elazar? V'idach, Rav Yochanan says, nafkale mibam bahem. You can learn out two drushes, because it says bahem. Now, it didn't have to say the word at all, but even if it did, it could have said it in the shortened version of bam. It says bahem, and therefore we darshan both with both dinim. V'idach bam behem loy darish. But Rav says no, you do not learn out two drashas. So you don't learn out from the hey bam bahem, and therefore you cannot learn the din that it's only over here that we say that it's the Balei Chaim are not nidcha, and we don't have this exclusion, and therefore we only learn out the din. We only learn out the din of the taroivus, and we don't have a din of. We don't learn out the exclusion that Balei Chaim are not nidachin only by balmumim. We don't restrict it only to the case of balmumim, and therefore Rav says that we say Balei Chaim eina nidachin. Well, even though granted it's true, you learn out you learn out from Balei Mumim, and therefore you say that the first sawyer was not nidcha, but nevertheless, let him have a choice. Let him be makriv, have the option to be makriv either this one or that one. Why does he say it's davka that when your makriv is the sheni shebezug rishon, the first sawyer Lashem? Why don't you have an option? Balei Chaim not nidachim. They're both valid. Let him choose. Amar Rava, he answers Rav Savala Kirbi Yasi. He holds like Rav Yasi the Amar Mitzvah Berisha, that we always try to use the first one. There's a Mitzvah Berisha. Now the first one, therefore, the first one that was designated as Har Hashem, that should be the one that's chosen. Hi, Rabbi Yossi. Which Rabbi Yossi? Where do we see that Rabbi Yossi says you should always choose the Rishon, the first one? Name Rabbi Yossi the Kupas. Maybe you'll say it's Rabbi Yossi the Kupas of the Shkolim, that they have the Shkolim that were collected and they retire him. The Shkolim, then 3 times it's none. Sholosh Kupas, Sholosh Soinch, Bem Terminus Olishka. There were 3 baskets, each of 3 saw. And they used to withdraw the coins from the lishka and put it in these baskets. They did the trumas halishka 3 times. They put it in these baskets. V'kos havleim aleph beis gimel, and each one was labeled. The first one aleph, the second beis, and the third one gimel. So they had the baskets of that they were that they withdrew the shkolim from the Lishka, and they had these baskets. They were labeled. Tanya, Amar Rabbi Yosi Loma Kosovim Aleph Beis Gimel. Why were they labeled with Aleph Beis Gimel? Leda, so that you should know Ezemhem Nitra Rishon, to know which one was the first one that they were Nitrama, which one was withdrawn first. Lahavi and Rishon. That's the one that's first should be used. That basket should be used first to take the shkolim, to bring the korbanos from that one first. Mitzvah Barisha, because it's a mitzvah Barisha. So you see that Rabbi Yosi holds mitzvah Barisha. When it says, no, it's not a raya. Dil Mishani also, maybe, yes, it's true. He says that over there it's a mitzvah Rishon, but perhaps it's dafki in a case like that. When the first one was fit, they had the shkolim in the first basket, lois chazak raisa. The second one wasn't fit yet. They didn't do the truma of the second one. They didn't take coins for the second one. So when the first one was roy, it was the only one that was roy. And therefore, the mitzvah should be chal on it. But over here, it's different. When the first one was designated as a Sor Lashem, now even though it was designated as Sor Lashem and the Sor Lazos was still alive at that point, but it still wasn't roy, it's only roy after they do the avodah of the dam of the par. So at that point, when they did the hagrola, it wasn't yet chazak. They still have to do the hazah of the par in the Kodesh Kadosh. So it wasn't roy. Now, when the Sor Lazozel died, they made another hagrola. Well, now you have two. So they're both chazi at the same time. So it's not that the first one was roy before the second one. So maybe it's different. Perhaps we say only mitzvah rishon, maybe that is only where the first one is roy, could have been used, the second one could not have been used yet. Now when the second one comes along, well, the first one was the only one that could have been used previously, so the mitzvah rishon. But over here, when they become roy at the same time, perhaps it's different. Perhaps there's no mitzvah rishon. Now, Sikh Yitzchak points out, or Taisa Rabbeinu Perez point out as well, that theoretically you could have said that over here, well, it's talking in the same way. It's talking in the same way that we're saying it's dafka where the avodah of the par was already done. So the first sort was roy before the second one was roy. However, but it's mashma that we're talking in all cases that this is the procedure. We're not machalik if the hazos of the dam of the par were done in the Kodesh Kadoshim have been done yet already or have not yet been done already. So therefore, we're not restricting it to any particular case. So you can't bring a right from that Rabbi Yosi, although we say Rabbi Yosi the Pesach. It's Rabbi Yosi, we mentioned the halacha bekorban Pesach. The Tanya, hamafresh pesach, that if someone designated his animal for korban Pesach, it got lost. And he then designated another one for the replacement. And then you found the first one. So you found the first one, now it's before Chatzois. So when Chatzois comes, when it's time to do its right, to do the Korban Pesach, you have Varei Shnei Amayimdim. You have both of them before you. So they're both before you, they both become roy at the same time. So Ezemem Shir Tzei Yikra, so he can choose whatever he wants. Divrei Chacham. Chacham say, you can choose either one for the Korban Pesach. There's no kapeda, there's no mitzvah in one over the other. But Rabbi Yosi, he says mitzvah rishon. He says a mitzvah is barisha. So you see that over here, that even though the first one did not become roy before the second one, Rabbi Yosi still says it's mitzvah rishon. So therefore, here also we say that Rav says it's mitzvah barisha, and since he holds balecham and nidochim, therefore the first one is eligible, and Davke use the first one because mitzvah rishon. So Gabi Korban Pesach, we see Rabbi Yosi says mitzvah rishon, but Rabbi Yosi says v'may sheni muvchar mimen, if the second one was better, then if it's a better one, then we should say that Yavienu, he should bring the second one. He should bring the second one because, as we learned previously, the Rishonim speak out that since the mitzvah is to eat the Korban Pesach, so if the second one is better, choose the second one. Taisus, however, it seems to learn a little differently. He says, similarly in our case, if the second sawyer is better, choose the second one. Meaning, according to Taisus, it doesn't seem to be restricted to the halachas of Korban Pesach because you eat the Korban Pesach. If one is better, if the second one is better, you always choose the second one.